Picture this. You're standing in line at your favorite coffee shop. You order a coffee for $2, pay, and move on with your day. Nothing unusual about that, right? Just $2. But ask yourself this. If you bought that same coffee every single workday for years on end, where does that money actually go? It's not just disappearing into your stomach. There's something most people never stop to think about every time they spend a small amount of money, and it might matter more to your future wealth than your salary, more than picking the right investment. Today, let's break down why that $2 coffee is, on paper, a lot more expensive than it looks. Welcome to this channel where we explain investing concepts in a simple way. But first of all, a quick disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Everything you hear here is for education, not a recommendation to buy or sell anything. So what's actually happening when you hand over $2 for that coffee? Think of it like this. Imagine you've got a single pie and you can only slice it once. Whatever slice you give to one thing, that same slice can never go to anything else. Money works exactly the same way. Every dollar that leaves your wallet is choosing one path, and by doing so, it automatically rejects every other path that dollar could have taken instead. That idea has a name in economics: opportunity cost. The definition is simple. Opportunity cost is the value of the best alternative you give up every time you choose one option over another. It's not just about the money leaving your pocket. It's about that money no longer being able to work anywhere else. So when you pay $2 for coffee, you're not just losing $2 for that day. You're also losing the chance for those $2 to grow somewhere else, if you had let it. Now let's dig deeper into why small, repeated expenses behave so differently from one big purchase made just once. Imagine buying a laptop for $800. That's one decision made once, and it's done. But a $2 coffee every workday, 5 days a week, isn't one decision. It's hundreds of tiny decisions repeated so often that your brain stops registering them as a decision at all. Our brains are wired to underestimate small recurring expenses because each individual purchase feels too small to matter. But here's the catch. Small and recurring beats big and one time, almost every single time, when you add it all up over years. $2 a day, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, comes out to about $500 annually. That's not pocket change anymore. That's a real number sitting right next to your rent or your phone bill, except nobody ever puts coffee on that list mentally. Now let's talk about what happens to that $500 if, instead of spending it, you let it sit somewhere that grows, say, in a simple diversified investment like an index fund. This is where opportunity cost stops being abstract and starts becoming concrete. Money that's invested doesn't just sit there. Historically, broad stock market index funds have returned somewhere around 7 to 10% a year on average over long stretches of time, though of course past performance never guarantees future results. Through a mechanism called compounding, your returns start generating their own returns. It's basically like a snowball rolling downhill, small at first, picking up more snow with every rotation, until the size it reaches has very little to do with how big it started. So that $500 a year isn't just $500 sitting still. Over 10, 20, 30 years, compounded growth can turn it into something many multiples larger. That's the real cost of the coffee. Not the $2 today, but the version of that money that never got the chance to snowball. It's worth pausing here, though, because this isn't about guilt-tripping you out of ever buying coffee again. That's not the point, and honestly, that kind of thinking usually backfires. The real lesson is about awareness, not deprivation. It's not about cutting every small pleasure out of your life. It's about noticing which small, repeated expenses you're not even getting much joy from anymore, and redirecting just some of that money toward your future self. Some people love their daily coffee ritual, and it brings them real happiness. In that case, the cost might be worth paying. Others spend on autopilot without even tasting the difference. That second group is who this message is really for. Let's make this real with two people, Maya and Felix. Maya buys a $2 coffee every single workday. Felix does the exact same thing for the first year. But then Felix decides to switch. He keeps making coffee at home most days and instead takes that same roughly $500 a year and puts it into a low-cost index fund year after year without trying to time the market or chase anything fancy. 10 years later, Maya has spent close to $5,000 on coffee. It's gone, no judgment, she enjoyed it, and that's fine. Felix, on the other hand, has also spent the same $5,000 worth of contributions, but because that money was invested and compounding the whole time, assuming a modest average annual return, his account could realistically be sitting somewhere in the range of $7,000 to $8,000, maybe more depending on the years in the market. Extend that same habit to 20 or 30 years, and the gap between Maya's and Felix's outcomes doesn't just grow, it stretches into a completely different order of magnitude. This mirrors a broader pattern researchers have found again and again, similar to long-term studies comparing different investor behaviors over multi-decade periods. It's rarely the size of a single decision that separates outcomes. It's the quiet, repeated decisions, made consistently over a long time, that end up mattering the most. So what does this actually mean for you? It doesn't mean cut your coffee. It means start asking the opportunity cost question about your own small, repeated habits, not as a punishment, but as a flashlight. What's something you spend on regularly, almost without thinking, that you wouldn't really miss if half of it quietly went somewhere that could grow instead? The truth is, the biggest financial mistakes rarely come from choosing the wrong investment. They come from never noticing where the money was already leaking out, $2 at a time. Your mindset around small, consistent choices is just as important as any specific strategy you pick. If you found this helpful, please follow us to continue growing this community. Thanks for watching and see you very soon. Bye.